All right, welcome back, everybody, and welcome to Renee Huse. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Renee Huse, that's it.
Awesome.
Perfect. Nailed it. I get Huse. It's like an Abbott and Costello routine, though, when I say it to somebody, because they're like, what's your last name? And I say, Huse, and they say, yours.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clever.
Like
Yeah,
first.
right?
Yeah.
That's an icebreaker.
Yeah, I know. Well, or just really awkward.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Renee and I have known each other for 25 years. We just established.
Yeah.
Renee and I went to high school, junior high and high school together.
We're both only 26. Though.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to be like, you just aged Renee. Don't age our guests.
But Renee and I walked different paths that sort of came in to have a divergent or a convergent where we came together again because Renee has been busy doing some real estate investing. And Renee has many, many investment properties around Alberta. You're a certified coach with REALTY as well, and the Real Estate Investment Network here in town. You've coached people. I've seen you on stage, on the photos and everything. I've heard people talk about you now. And so we were talking about investment real estate, and Renee connected. And Renee is now in the mortgage industry as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But we wanted someone to talk about investment real estate and specifically rent-to-owns because there was a lot of misinformation on rent-to-owns, and I know that you've done it personally.
Yes.
But I also just wanted to touch base and say that whatever information we get here is the tip of the iceberg because we're going to give you guys an opportunity because Renee has graciously accepted to teach a course for us on investment
And I
real
expect
estate.
everyone's going to be hugging me like they were hugging Dave or
Yeah,
whoever
that's
this guy is. Yeah.
At the end of it. So so let's talk about this segment's going to be about rent to owns. We're going to touch on other topics, but there's been a lot of information out there. Kirsten, first of all, Renee, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, rent to own is said, I remember being 19 and being like, obviously I'll rent to own. And everybody I knew who was that age would be like, obviously we'll just rent to own. And it's just this thing where you hear it and it sounds like the best thing possible, but there's no information on it.
Right.
So what are there facts? Is it kind of depending on the situation?
Yeah, but what is a rent to own first of all? Break it down. Yeah.
So essentially it's really a two-part strategy. The person is first going to rent the property, and then they're going to have an option to buy the property that's layered on top of that. So that's a tenant that's going to rent the property with an option to buy the property at a fixed price on a set date in the future. So that's kind of the brass taxes of what rent to own is. Yeah.
Okay. So why do investors like the strategy though?
So overall, I think we have this. I think it's a bit of a sensationalized idea, and this is a bit of an opinion section for me, but I think that we have this idea that we're going to have this amazing tenant that's going to treat the property like it's their own. They're going to move in, and it's going to be a 3-year lease or rent-to-own contract. So they're going to stay 3 years. That takes vacancy right out of the equation. They're going to paint it. They're going to add value. They're going to treat it like their own. I'm going to make double the return on investment that I would with just a normal rental property. And I think that's really how rent-to-own is taught, and I think that's really how we've absorbed it. But
that's exactly how I would have thought it would have been if we had a rent-to-own property.
Yeah,
nailed it.
I think what people miss is that when we're looking for a tenant that wants to rent to own, that tenant can't get into home ownership. There's something that's been a barrier for them to home ownership, and that's why they're looking for that rent to own opportunity. And so typically when somebody's not able to buy a home, it's because they've got some kind of habit or some kind of pre-existing situation in their life that allows them to not buy a home through conventional measures. Get a realtor, get a mortgage, get a property, right? And so I think the missing piece when we're thinking about rent-to-own as an investment strategy is that one of the risks that we're taking, one of the bets that we're making is that somebody is going to change their habits.
Right.
And just because that tenant buyer that's moved into our property says like, hey, listen, I've never paid my cell phone bills ever before.
Yeah, so my credit's horrible.
So my credit is,
I declared bankruptcy twice.
Right.
But now
I'm going to change.
Yeah.
This is philosophical.
Right?
It really is.
But that's the missing concept. And in all the rent-to-own courses I've taken and all the things that I've learned over my years sort of traveling through real estate, what I've realized is that there's this whole other emotional habit habitual side that no one's ever talked to me about. I only know that because I'm living that with some of my own deals.
Right.
That's true, though. If you don't
Yeah.
have a down payment, you can't afford to buy a house. You can't make mortgage payments. You can't make a commitment to live in a house right now. You're right. Like, that's the person who's basically said, in 3 years, I'm going to do this.
And some people do change, but some people don't.
Yeah.
And so,
And that's probably what you need to bank on.
right, you need to know that both options exist, right?
Interesting.
So one of the things that we wanted, and the reason we wanted to hold this segment is because we know that many of you work with investors and you end up getting buzzwords thrown out, and one of them being rent to own. So the actual mechanics that go into it, I want to revisit that for a second. So we're saying that a tenant is just going to do a normal rental.
Yeah.
Traditionally, what you've seen in these contracts, who's in charge of the repairs and maintenance of the house?
So traditionally, then, the tenant would be the one that pays for all the maintenance.
Which could look like a utopia sort
Absolutely.
of situation for a landlord. And then at the end of this, they have the option to buy it. Now, there's some people, I've seen these rent-to-own and lease option agreements where a percentage of the rent goes towards helping them save a down payment,
Right.
and then that gets forfeited, or if the person doesn't end up exercising their option.
Right.
Do you see that? Is that something you've seen in these agreements?
So essentially, there's typically 4 components. If it's set up what I feel is properly,
Right.
there's going to be 4 components. So you're going to have the initial option payment. So somebody may give you $10,000
As like a down
upfront.
payment. Yes.
You don't want to ever say the word down payment, though.
Right. Fair enough.
right?
Fair enough. Yes.
So it would be an initial option payment.
Right.
And then you're going to have the final purchase price of the home, in which you're going to increase that value of the home over however many years. And then you're going to have the initial option payment. I guess there's three. Did I say 4?
Yeah. So,
Whoops.
so let's say that. So it's
Yeah.
400,000. You
Yeah.
say there's going to be a 3% increase
Yeah.
over the next 3 years when they exercise their option.
Yeah.
So call it 436 for
Yeah,
sake
sure.
of argument. And then so they say that I'm agree to buy it today, or today's value is 400. I agree to buy it in 3 years for 436.
Right.
And I have my initial option payment of $10,000 at the beginning.
Right.
And then I'm paying, is it market rents? Is
Oh,
it
yes.
traditionally higher?
So it's, yeah, that's what I missed, the rent. Hello, that's the 4th option.
Perfect, there you go.
Thanks, Linz.
No worries.
So it would be market rent, and then you would add on a monthly option payment. And again, this is where people get confused, and they get confused about the language. And we have to be clear on this, right? Because it really is an option payment, because options aren't free by
Right.
their nature, right? And so again, this is why these strategies you have to have the right team. You have to have a lawyer that understands these strategies, right? You have to have a real estate mentor that understands these strategies and that you can bounce ideas around, right? So anyway, but yeah, that would be so it's market rent. Somebody would pay additional option payment on top of that market rent. And then you would also be making whatever the spread is between where you bought the house and where you're going to sell the house on a specific date in the future, right?
And help us understand one more point here. So talk about both scenarios. There's been a successful exercisation of the someone successfully exercised their option of
Sure.
purchasing the property, and then talk about the more common one when it falls apart.
Right. So the old rent to fail.
Rent to fail. Yeah.
Right, which we've seen, that's kind of why rent to own, like, people tend to get a bit of a bad taste in their mouth, right? Is because what happens is those option payments are non-refundable.
Right.
Right.
And oftentimes the
Right.
initial option payment is also non-refundable.
So that $10,000 someone put down
As their,
kind of.
initial option payment.
As their initial option payment.
Right.
Those are non-refundable situations. And so now that person is much worse off because they've crossed paths with you. So you really never, and the thing that I want to get back to with my original point too is, so you accept this $10,000 from somebody, then you accept a monthly option payment for the course of 3 years, but are you providing that person any coaching about
Right.
their credit? Are you providing that person any coaching about what they need to claim on their tax return?
Right.
So that they can qualify for a mortgage?
That's right.
You know, there's just so many others. The 2 big things that I'm seeing going on in Calgary with this strategy right now too are the mortgage rules have changed. So anybody that entered into a rent-to-own contract prior to October has 20% less buying power than they did
Right.
on September 30th. Or it was October 27th, I guess. So, but the mortgage rules changing absolutely is going to explode rent-to-own deals across Canada, right? And we've also seen the Calgary real estate market kind of decrease in value, right?
Yeah.
So when you've got a contract with somebody to buy a house that you've increased 3% a year over the last 3 years, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are those rent-to-owns or are those rent-to-fails? It's tough, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough strategy.
And there's those
Huh.
slumlords out there that might be thinking, oh my gosh, this looks like an easy way to cash in on somebody's desperate situation.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like gyms where, all the sales come out for January 1 and
Yeah.
middle of January and December, and everyone gets their
Yeah.
gym membership. But we know
Yeah.
that that's great for the
Yeah.
first month, and they're banking on the fact because they'll oversell their gyms by 400%
Mhm.
because they know that there isn't enough cardio machines if everyone showed up. And at the end of it, they make the money because they know that people just won't keep up.
Yeah.
People don't change their habits.
They
That's
don't.
just it. So, and you're right. Even from the tenant standpoint, the way you explained what the typical tenant's behavior, educational level might be moving into this situation, all those things that you mentioned,
Mhm.
unless there's some sort of a coach to help that person,
Mhm.
they really are doomed
Mhm.
to fail. In many ways,
Yeah.
like you really need some guidance from a team.
Right.
Like this is how this is going to work because no one would have that information.
Exactly. And I just want to say too, like when you consider this situation, like you guys were talking about the Canadian real estate market,
Yeah.
right? And so that we sort of talk about it as a whole. If you consider this strategy in Ontario, buyers that entered rent-to-own deals in Ontario 3 years ago, I mean, that has drastically changed the trajectory of those people's lives.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, they're
Like,
rich
there's
now.
Hundreds of
There's-
thousands of dollars.
yeah,
Of built-in equity, right? So
Yes.
like that is a brilliant strategy in that market
Right.
at this point in time,
Yeah.
if it's handled properly, right?
And we were mentioning that I had friends who did rent-to-owns in 2005,
Right.
and it just exploded because then all of a sudden 2006, 2007, and they had these lease options to buy out, and they
Yeah.
were writing books on it, and many of them were bankrupt in 2009, literally bankrupt after writing their "I'm a Great Investor" book. So it's really super dependent here. But I just want to make a statement that this is almost like the foreclosure of the real estate market. And the reason I say that is because all your buyers are so interested in foreclosures because they hear, oh my God, here's a distressed sale. I'm going to get in there. And well, it's different in Canada. I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of
Right.
foreclosures, and it's not always a good deal. And you're taking on so much more risk. And for investors, they hear this rent-to-own concept and they just think this is great. Or people without money think this is awesome. I'm going to get into that rent-to-own situation where I'd much rather see them just rent at market rents.
Absolutely.
Work with a mortgage advisor to give them coaching on what they need to do to improve their credit over the long term,
Yeah.
and then get in their first home under their own merit once they've actually proven that they can be responsible enough to take that on.
Just
Yeah.
this question isn't in here, and this might be obvious, but in terms of a rent-to-own situation, where does the listing realtor for a rent-to-own property come in?
Where do they come-
So in a deal like that, so let's say,
I can speak to that too if you.
yeah,
Um,
so owner tenant, you guys make an arrangement where in 3 years he's going to buy the property. At what point would the listing agent be involved in the fact that like a deal is about to happen?
So oftentimes, one of the advantages of a rent-to-own is that, or at least from an investor standpoint, is that they're selling a property
Right.
without a realtor involved.
Without
Yes.
a realtor
So they're saving the
involved?
real estate fees.
That's right.
Okay.
Which also scares me. Like I own a lot of properties.
I thought that you were going to say that.
Yeah. I like realtors involved.
Yeah.
Because then it's their fault. No, but really, realtors need to be involved in real estate transactions. I don't like private real estate transactions, but that's exactly it. So it's not.
So there's some risk there for the buyer and the seller as well, because
Absolutely.
you might not, because the buyer probably isn't using a realtor either to make sure that the proper things are being done and disclosed and right.
And
Interesting.
I'll speak to the legalities of it from the standpoint of whether or not what a trade is. Like you actually, realtors can be involved in the rental process and get a commission for a trade. We're allowed to do that under the real estate council. Has to go through the brokerage, so you could set up a fee for it. But I just want to be very clear: this session was not ever intended to be an endorsement for rent-to-owns. It's designed to be an education process for those of you who are getting peppered with questions by your investors. We do have some rent-to-own sample contracts set up on our professional development docs. Our article and template database under articles for your clients. But I just wanted to say one thing. You're going to get sued if you use those. So my point on them is you have to go to your lawyers to take a look at it. And I am not endorsing this at all. I'm saying that the point of this actually is to kind of say, hey, you know what? you may want to rethink this as an ethical individual getting into this. You can prey on people's despair, but that's not the way that I want to sleep at night and get in there. And so only special circumstances is this the right fit. We wanted to educate you guys on this.
You know what, just on that last point that you said, who would be a good candidate to do this? Because obviously, everybody entering in a rent to own isn't a bad person who's trying to.
No, I appreciate
do
that.
that.
Absolutely.
So if you were coaching somebody on being like, this is a great property, you're a good person to do this, what would that situation look like?
So for me, I actually think it would start with that tenant buyer. Like there are some people that are new to Canada, they have absolutely no credit history, they can't get a mortgage, and they really just want to get into the real estate market. They want to establish a school district for their kids. They don't want to have to move again. You know what? Maybe a 1 or 2 year rent to own deal.
Thank you. Yeah, short term. Yeah.
That would be awesome to help them get established in Canada, get set up. They don't have to move again. You know what? That's a great person. There's some people that, you know, the stated income rules have gotten a little bit stickier with mortgages. So there's some people that just have never paid the tax man. They've claimed zero for 10 years on, you know, that's what their notice of assessment says for 10 years. You know what? Maybe a 2 year rent to own deal because you need to restructure the way you're submitting your taxes for a couple of years so that we can show a lender, you know, maybe that works. You're established in a neighborhood, you've got a family, you don't want to move. Sure, right? Like everyone's better off. I think when you're conceptualizing the idea, it's like I have to ask myself when I go into any real estate investment type transaction, whether it's with a tenant or a rent to own, agreement for sale, whatever that looks like, is everyone's life just a little bit better because we had this meeting? Like, have I just altered the trajectory just so it's just a little bit better for them that they met with me? And if that answer is no, then my heart isn't in the right place.
Yeah.
So
I love that so much.
That's a great benchmark.
Right? Yeah.
So
bench stick?
probably
Benchmark.
yeah, or a litmus test.
What's the one with the stick? Not measuring stick. Anyways,
It's a
I need
euphemism.
to stop trying to be good at euphemisms.
So, all right. So, okay. So one more thing on here before we go on this. So Renee is a wealth of knowledge and information, and what I love so much about it is over 20 doors herself in terms of real estate. It's outstanding what you've accomplished in a very short period of time in your very young life.
26.
26. So I want to say May 9th, Renee is holding a class called The Reality of Rental Real Estate. It's in our PDC. We are going to stream that as well, but there's seats in person. I don't know if she knew that, but we're going to do it. I don't know if Kelly knew that, but we're going to do it. So get on there, get registered. So we're going to talk about everything involved in investment real estate and the reality of it. Give us a real quick preview of what we can expect from that course.
So I've broken down rental real estate deals into 6 levels, sort of from beginner to expert. And I've got some examples. They're real life examples from my portfolio, from their pictures of properties that I own. So they really are current deals that are happening in Alberta right now. And then I've also got 3 key conversations that I think really can elevate your conversation with your clients, really set you apart as that realtor that just gets it and is really offering that next level of expertise and advice. So
fabulous.
Yeah.
So great. I bet it's sold out right now.
Well, it's exactly. May 9th, get on between 1 and 3 p.m. If you don't get a seat inside and you're on the waiting list, we'll send out the link to make sure you guys can stream that online. ReneeHuse.com.
Yes.
RENEE, 2 E's at the end, HUSE.com.
Yes.
Go check out Renee online. If you guys have any questions about this, please give her a call. Contact her, learn more about her. We're going to be posting up her information in our email that went out with the trivia. And Renee, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
and
it
give us
was a
your time.
pleasure to have you. What a
Yeah.
treat. Thank you for your time.
I look forward to talking here again. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you guys in a bit.